Hello and welcome to the transcription explanation of this design. It was made to be a forearm tattoo, so similar length as mine, except it's about 2 inches wide, so just like on one side of the forearm tattoo, and about 8 inches long. And this white square here is exactly 2 by 8 inches, so you can see that it scales to be pretty darn exact to 2 by 8, maybe a little bit shorter. And in the script, you read starting at the bottom and you go counterclockwise, like a time traveler going back in time. And that's true for the words in a sentence as well as the letters in a word typically. Now, this is set up linearly, and if you imagine an infinitely large circle, if you start at the bottom of that and you go counterclockwise, you'll be going from the left to the right. So that's why this left to right reading still works. And I also have this little star indicator. You see this shape? It's kind of like a half circle around a dot, and I have that on the sentence circle here, saying that this is the first word in the sentence and that the bottom is down here. So it's kind of at a little bit of a skew just to help save space with this little guy being right here. But if we look at this position, which as it's currently oriented is about 6:30, 6:45, 7 o'clock, our first letter is still the first one you hit if you start there. So it works out. So let's go ahead and read this. The words in the circle are both in a sentence circle as well as a word circle. So the hardest part about reading this particular style of design is figuring out where the sentence circle is and where the word circle is. And if you were to consider this outer thick one with the start marker on it a word circle, you'd see this as a K instead of a Y, and you'd see this as an O still, but this would have 3 lines on it and be an M instead of being on a word circle. And if you look at this guy here as our word circle, which it is because this is the sentence circle, because there's a sentence circle going around a word circle, this guy here crosses our word circle and would be in the bottom row. So if you look at the grid above me, there are rows and columns, and the letter stems are the different rows, and the very bottom row has a letter crossing our word circle, and that's what this one is. It crosses our blue word circle here. So there's the blue word circle and then the red letter stem, and this one crosses, so it's in the bottom row. And then there's 2 dots with it, these 2 here, and that makes it in the column with 2 dots. That's the letter Y. And then we have an O inside our word circle. And then we have a U with a line going outwards. And vowels are smaller than consonants. So we have a vowel, a vowel, a vowel, a vowel, a vowel, 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 vowel. And then this is a period because it's on our sentence circle. Okay. So let's go ahead and get to the next word because this is a Y-O-U. And then here's our next word. An A is outside our word circle, and then this horseshoe shape has 1, 2, 3, 4 dots on it, making it an ND. So that's the word and. And then this little teeny tiny word circle, which is nestled within our ND, is the word I. Because the word I is so small, we can do some fun little things like this to help with the visual flow, I think, of it. So it has you and I. So I has our little line going inwards toward the center of our word circle. This looks like it could be an E inside the ND, except it can't be because it has a vowel on it. You can't put vowels like this on vowels, so this is another word circle. So there's some clarification there for people familiar with the script. But anyway, you and I. And then starting at the bottom here, the first letter we hit is this one, and it's a shallot of it with 2 lines. So that's a W. Then we have an I with a line going inwards. This is a double circle, and it's the same thickness, so that means it's the same letter twice. And this has 1, 2, 3 dots with it, so that's the double L. And even though these are at the bottom, the position of the word and the letter on the word is relative to the letter stem, not the modifiers. So you see how this double circle is at this position here. So at around like 10 o'clock-ish, 9:45-ish, now that's like 10 o'clock-ish. Because then there's 11 and then there's 12. This is at 10 o'clock, so that is above the 9 and 3. So it's up there, so it's up high. So anyway, W-I-L-L, so that's will. And then we have an A outside of our word circle, and then there's this L with 3 dots here, another W, a shallot with 2 lines, an A outside the word circle, another Y crossing our word circle with 2 dots, and then this S has 1 line here, plus this sneaky arc. And I said earlier that this one counts as 2 lines even though it's 1 line, and that's because lines count where they end on a letter stem. So this ends here, and it ends here. So similarly, this ends here, and it ends here, plus there's this third little line here. So that's a total of 3 lines for this one and 2 lines for that one. So, yeah, this is the word always. And then in this word circle, we only have one letter stem, and that's a B. It's a horseshoe shape with no modifiers. And then here's our E inside our word circle. So that's our B. So then this next one here, we have a horseshoe with no modifiers, so that's another B. And then an A is outside our word circle. And then this full circle has 1, 2, 3, 4 dots with it. And then this one has 2 dots with it. So that would be a C and a K. And I'm going to scooch these just a tiny little bit, just so this one is a tiny bit closer to this letter stem, which probably when you get it tattooed, like this degree of difference of this being closer than this being to this won't be that noticed, but it makes it more technically correct because we can fairly easily tell that there's a pattern of 4 dots here and 2 dots here. So 4 with this letter and 2 with this letter for the C and the K. And then we have a T and then an H with 2 lines on it, E, N. So this whole design translates to you and I will always be back then. And then here's a period at the end of the sentence. So that's that design. Hope you like it. Thanks. Bye.